The Premier League is nearly back, 2 weeks to go, and I can't wait. That, of course, means you now have to sink your teeth into every single Premier League prediction you can possibly get your teeth into. I can't wait for it, can you? But that, of course, means the supercomputer now gets involved. These days, the supercomputer knows exactly what it's doing, doesn't it? Last season predicted Manchester City were going to win the league, gave it an 82% chance of happening, and that, of course, did not happen this season. It's very much predicting Liverpool, as are most people are predicting Liverpool, so we'll see what I predict, shall we, at the end of this video. I'm going to start with the bottom of the table, though, starting with Leeds. I think Leeds will go down, almost certainly. I think the question remains, will it be the same three that go down? It always seems to be in the last few seasons. The same three that go up are always the ones that go down. Can that change this season? I'm not sure, in all honesty. I'm actually putting Leeds bottom of the table, even though last season they got 100 points. They were the best goal scorers in the Championship last season, but I'm not sure goals necessarily guarantee you a place in the Premier League next season. I think you're more likely to get solid defences winning you those extra valuable points, the 0-0s and the 1-1s at home. You know, they need to get those valuable results, and I'm not sure the signing of Sean Longstaff is going to be enough for Leeds to protect that back line. Of course, you've got Daniel Farke as well, who's very familiar with getting relegated out of the Premier League. He's equally familiar with getting sides promoted, as he has done with Leeds now on multiple occasions as well. Norwich have been relegated twice out of the Premier League as a result, so I'm not sure he's the man for the job, and he's still at the helm, so I'm putting Leeds at the bottom. Second from bottom, I'm going to go, let's pop Burnley in. They too finished on 100 points last season. Very impressive, but they were the other way. They had a very resolute defence last season, only conceding 16, but a big factor, a big part of that resolute defence that Burnley had in the Championship last season was James Trafford, who's now at Manchester City. And I think it's really difficult to replace a goalkeeper that was so integral to the way they played last season. I still think they'll have a strong defence. I think Scott Parker is a good manager. I just think the other end of the pitch, will they have enough? I'm putting Burnley in the relegation zone as well. And above them, in third place, I'm going to pop Sunderland in there. Now, I know a lot of people are probably putting them rock bottom, and I think they've just spent well. They snuck through last season. They blagged their way through into the Premier League, in all honesty. They lost the last 5 games in the Championship season last season. Of course, then they went into the playoffs and they knocked Coventry out in the semis and they won the final. And because of that, they've spent that money signing the likes of Adingra from Brighton. That's a big money signing, but he's a top quality player. He's going to add a bit of speed. He's going to add a bit of quality up front. Granit Xhaka. Experience. I think that's exciting for Sunderland, and that's why I'm putting them third, and I think they'll just still fall short, but I actually think they might outperform the likes of Leeds and Burnley and surprise a few, even though last season they were fourth and they finished miles off it compared to the other two, but I'm still putting them in the relegation zone. Just ahead of them, safe, and only just, I'm putting Wolves, just pop them in there. Losing Mateus Cunha, Ryan Aït-Nouri, that's massive. That is massive. But Vitor Pereira, I think he's going to keep them safe. I think we saw last season what he's capable of. He dragged them out of a relegation dogfight last season with a brilliant 4-3-3 system, not too dissimilar to the way Ruben Amorim plays. A great performance from him at the end of last season. They were arguably one of the most informed sides in the Premier League, Wolves. But the loss of the players is the key problem there for Wolves. The Cunhas of this world and Ryan Aït-Nouri as well are two massive, massive losses. And without replacing them, only really Fer Lopez there coming in. He's promising, but he's unproven. So I'm putting them just ahead of the relegation zone. Brentford, a similar story, really, in all honesty. Losing players, again, and lots of them. And Mbeumo and Mark Flecken, the number one choice goalkeeper, again, that's a big loss. Can they keep hold of Visser as well? And if they lose that type of player, where are the goals coming from for Brentford as well? And losing Thomas Frank, again, another loss, not quite on the pitch, more off the pitch in managerial terms with regards to Thomas Frank, but still, that is a huge loss. Such an established figure at Brentford that is now gone. And they've kept with that same way of thinking in an established figure by promoting within, bringing in the likes of Keith Andrews, the set-piece coach last season for Bournemouth, is now the number one manager at Brentford. Is he enough, though? Is he the name that's going to be respected in the dressing room? As well as the loss of Mbeumo and Mark Flecken and Norgard as well. That's a huge loss for Brentford, so I'm putting them just ahead of Wolves. And above them, I'm going with Fulham. Now, they've only brought in Benjamin Lecomte, and that's it. That's it from Fulham. Incredibly quiet transfer window for Fulham, but they've kept all of their best 11, and I think that's key. Marco Silva is very much a Premier League proven manager. I think he's well established in that role as well, and I do think he'll keep them safe, Fulham, and I still think they'll be able to take points off some of the bigger sides this season because they do have promising players in that midfield, the full-backs as well, in Tete and Robinson going up and down the flanks. I think they're a good side on their day. West Ham, I'm going to go ahead of them. I think losing Kudus is a big blow, as all the teams in the bottom half of the Premier League. It's when you lose players, you've got to think about how do we rebuild now, because we've lost the likes of Mohamed Kudus. They're going to rely heavily on the likes of Bowen for their goal output. And I actually think it could be a breakout season for the like of Somerville, because he was injured last season. He's promised to come back this season and almost be like a new player for West Ham going into the season. He looks a very talented player, does Somerville, as well as Graham Potter being his first full season in charge for West Ham as well. I think that's exciting for them. I think he's quietly an underrated manager because I think he tarnished his reputation at Chelsea a little bit, but don't forget what he did at Brighton. He was brilliant at Brighton, and if he can replicate that form, but albeit at West Ham, he can certainly keep them safe and maybe look a little bit higher potentially, but it heavily depends on the likes of Bowen and players like Somerville and delivering. They need more goals. Palace, I think they've got a season to not be too bothered about, really. I think they'll be safe. Oliver Glasner's a top-class manager. I think he'll be safe. And they've got a bit of a hangover from winning their first ever trophy last season. So there's going to be zero pressure from the fans. No internal pressure at Crystal Palace. They're still jumping for joy at the fact that they've seen their side lift a piece of silverware for the first time in their history. They did it against my bloody club in the FA Cup final, didn't they? I remember that all too well. But they've got a bit of a sour taste in their mouths following that result because, of course, John Textor and the multi-club ownership rules have hindered their growth in terms of being a Europa League side. They are now a Conference League side as a result of that, and they were demoted because of the multi-club ownership rules. Of course, that's still facing appeal, by the way, but that could leave a sour taste. But being in European football is going to hinder a squad size like Crystal Palace. So I'm just putting them ahead of West Ham, but still, I think they can have a reasonably good season. They've got to keep hold of Eze. They've got to keep hold of Mateta for their goals as well, because that's going to be key for Crystal Palace's season. Just ahead of them, their arch rivals Brighton, with the youngest Premier League manager there is going right now in Fabian Hürzeler. I thought a few silly results crept in last season for Brightford. Who are Brightford? I wonder who they are. Never heard of Brightford. Anyway, Brighton. That's who I meant. Brighton. Yeah, silly results crept in, I thought, last season. They've spent a reasonable amount of money. De Kuiper and Kostalas as well, the big Greek coming in as a centre-forward. I think that's... You never know with Brighton. Their recruitment is just the envy of the Premier League. It always has been. They sign these gems that are dirty once they enter Brighton, but they polish them up, make them nice and shiny, and before you know it, they're selling them for 100 million. You know, João Pedro's gone. Estepunian's gone. They've lost quite a few key players, Brighton, but they've brought in players that are a little bit unknown. I think Tom Watson's a clever signing from Sunderland, but still, they've brought in players that are a little bit more on the unknown side, but you just never know with Brighton, the fact that they can just deliver. But Fabian Hürzeler, I've got one eye on him because I've not been convinced last season he is the right man for the job, because he definitely let a few silly results creep in to Brighton's performances last season, so it'll be interesting to see. And I've actually put them in the bottom half of the Premier League, which we haven't seen for a long time, in Brighton being that low down, which is the thinking there. Bournemouth just ahead of them. Andoni Iraola, I'm a big fan of him. I think he plays scintillating football. Last season they finished 9th, of course, so they have fallen a little bit. That's due to losing key defenders like Milos Kerkez and Dean Howson to Real Madrid. That's a big blow, but they've still got the pace and the power up front. Semenya and Cliver, I think, are two sensational players. Last season, they were taking points off everyone, in particular in the first half of the season. You just did not want to go to the Britannia Stadium. It was a nightmare. The first time ever they beat Manchester City. Ever. You know, and it was a brilliant season for Bournemouth. It fell off a little bit towards the end because people were talking about them finishing in Europe last season. It fell off at the end, but still, I think Bournemouth, without having European football as a hindrance like some sides do, the likes of Crystal Palace, for example, I still think they can maintain a reasonably good season, but that loss at the back is going to be key for Bournemouth. David Moyes' Everton ahead of them. I'm looking forward to seeing what Everton can do, because I think David Moyes, it's the David Moyes factor. He knows the club like the back of his hand. He knows the division like the back of his hand. He's just got this heritage within the club that is just so loved, and he was so welcomed back with open arms. And I think they've done some clever business as well. Dewsbury Hall coming in. I think tying down Jared Branthwaite to a contract is key. Maintaining the core of the squad is absolutely vital. And as a result, I'm now putting Everton in the top half finish next season. Ahead of them, Forest punched above their weight last season, I thought, quite a bit. In all honesty, and similar to Palace, it's that European football that's going to disrupt their domestic flow, I'm pretty certain again. And will they have the squad to cope with the extra fixtures, the midweek fixtures that just get in your way? You don't have a fully fit squad to go into the weekend games in the Premier League. You're battered and bruised from your midweek games. Are they going to be able to sustain the momentum throughout the season? Because I still think they're going to be a dangerous side. They've lost Elanga, which was a key weapon in their arsenal last season, in particular in how they utilised that on the counter-attack. Elanga's just lightning quick. Losing that as a weapon is going to be a big loss for Nottingham Forest. But a big win was definitely tying down Gibbs White. I think the whole legal battle as well has proven to be an interesting one. Off the field antics, as always it is now in the Premier League, isn't it? But tying down Gibbs White, albeit some people think he's been blackmailed into staying at Forest, I still think he's a good enough player to be the nucleus to their midfield. I still think they'll finish 9th. Now, ahead of them, this is where it gets a little bit interesting now. Spurs climbing the table, I think, under Thomas Frank. It's a step up in pressure, but I think he can handle it. I think he's gone to a bigger club in terms of Spurs. From Brentford to Spurs, it's a step up, but I think he's more than ready to make that jump. Signing the likes of Mohamed Kudus as well. It's a sensational talent. What a dribbling talent. And João Paulinho as well. I mean, he's looking to resurrect his career because he sort of fell off at Bayern. Just did not work out at Bayern Munich, did it? It didn't work out at all, but I think João Paulinho now back in the Premier League. He looked like everyone wanted. I would say that from 5th downwards, everyone would have signed the likes of João Paulinho to play in their midfield. He got a role at Bayern Munich, so of course he's a very top quality Premier League established player, but he fell off at Bayern. Will he be able to re-establish himself in the Premier League in Spurs' midfield? I think it's going to be interesting to see Spurs next season, and they're thinking they need a really big season from Solanke. They've lost Son, which was to be expected. Last season he really wasn't hitting the heights of his previous former self. I think it was the right time for Son to leave, but I still think Spurs are going to be climbing the table. And as are United, I hate to say. I do not want to say that at all, but I think Ruben Amorim, I think people are sleeping on him, even the United fans who've written him off. This is his first full season. Has he actually been given the tools he needs, though? Because the style that he plays, the formation that he plays is key. The wing-back positions is going to be interesting. Bringing in Dorgu last season, and obviously Ahmad on the other side as well. I'm going to be interested, and Leon as well now as another left wing-back choice as well. But that front three, are they going to gel? And that front three could contain Sesko as well, which sounds like very likely to happen now with Cunha, Sesko and Mbeumo. That's not, for me, the elite level standard of player that United want to be getting, but it's a step up on what they had last season. No two ways about it. It's a massive upgrade, but is it an upgrade to get them into the European spots? I'm not so sure. They need to gel quickly because the pressure is immense at Manchester United. Ruben Amorim could be under threat at Christmas, considering the start of their fixtures as well. They're not easy fixtures for United, facing Arsenal, Chelsea and City in the first 6 games. So we could be talking about a different situation 6 games into the season, but I do think United are going to climb the table and they're going to make a stride probably in the right direction, which is a bitter pill to swallow for me because I want to see them down there, mate. Villa, I think they'll be next. I think they've been held back this season by PSR. The lack of spending ability to them has been key. The fact that they've been struggling with that. They haven't lost many players, though. I think that's also vital. Obviously, Rashford was only a lone player to begin with, but losing that player is a bit of a loss. But I still think that brings Ollie Watkins back in to the squad. He was very much at the end of last season in and out, Ollie Watkins. He started the season on fire. End of last season, he was a bit in and out. Didn't get into the starting 11 in Champions League games, but I think this season he's very much going to be in as a result of that. And I think he's going to get goals this season in the Aston Villa side. And like a lot of sides that haven't bought, they haven't sold too many players. They've kept the core of their squad. And Unai Emery managing that squad, which is a very well-established Champions League last season, they nearly got all the way, didn't they? They were very close. They did incredibly well against PSG. And if they can emulate that form, take it into this season, I still think Aston Villa will be up there and thereabouts. And they'll be that team you don't want to face. You don't want to go away to Villa Park. No one wants to go to Villa Park. They will take points off everybody at Villa Park. It's that fortress that you don't want to go away to. Newcastle. Yeah, such a disappointing transfer window. I mean, they look set to miss out on Sesko, and I mean, they've looked set to miss out on everybody. You don't forget how good they are, though. People are sleeping on Newcastle because they haven't signed, and obviously if they do lose Isak, that changes a lot. That changes the whole dynamic of the Premier League, as well as my final prediction at the end of this as well. But they are quite far down their journey of growth, Newcastle. People forget how far they've come. Last season they won a piece of silverware. They've got the wind behind their sails right now. They've got a bit of momentum. There's a feel-good factor, albeit the transfer window and within the fan base, probably not. But I think it would feel different in the training ground. I think those players there, that albeit Isak is become a bit of a problem player. I think they've got Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton, and Tonali. That midfield's beastly. You know what I mean? That's a strong midfield. Don't forget that. And if they are able to sign a new centre forward to replace Isak, or get Isak on side and playing with them and playing with purpose for them again, then Newcastle are going to be there again. I really believe that. So I think people are being a bit hasty with Newcastle and their transfer window as a result. So I'm putting them as 5th, same place as last season. Chelsea, I very, very nearly put them in 3rd. You know, they've got a taste of silverware right now. The conference win, the FIFA Club World Cup win. That's huge for Chelsea. They've very much got that feeling, that winning feeling embedded within the club once again. So I think Chelsea fans have got a lot to be excited about. Cole Palmer needs a wonder season. I think João Pedro and Neto, sensational talents, on their day in particular. Can they maintain consistency? Cole Palmer last season sort of dwindled a little bit in the second half of last season, but I think he was surrounded by a squad that was a little bit dwindling as well. If he's got players around him that can complement him and allow him to flourish to the standard that we saw in the previous season in a Chelsea shirt, then Chelsea are going to be a dangerous threat. The problem for me, it's in between the sticks. Sanchez, for me, I think he's going to cost them points. I think he's already showed that last season. If he can turn his form round and become a solid, safe pair of hands between the sticks for Chelsea, I think Chelsea could genuinely go on a title-challenging run next season. Maybe not all the way, but close. I just think their goalkeeper is too many question marks above his consistency for me, and that's why I've put them in 4th. Arsenal, I've gone for as 3rd. Can they go again? And I mean, by that, I mean, they've come so close yet so far. So frequently, so close yet so far in the previous 3 seasons. Last season was arguably a bigger drop-off than the previous 2. They went toe-to-toe with Manchester City in the previous 2 seasons. The following season, this 3rd season that's just passed the 24-25 season, they were very much off it in the final stages of last season and allowed Liverpool to just run away with it, as did Manchester City, of course. And in the end, last season, Manchester City was supposed to have one of the worst seasons in recent history, but they only finished 3 points ahead of Manchester City. The positive news for Arsenal, for me, is Zubimendi. I think he's an underrated signing, an underappreciated signing. It's all about Gyökeres, and I think that's an amazing signing. If he gels, he has to settle quickly for Arsenal. He has to find his feet and hit the back of the net early for Arsenal. I think that needs to happen. I think they need to stop being so overly dependent on Saka. Is that where Madueke comes in? Possibly. I'm not convinced by that as a signing, but I do think Zubimendi frees up the likes of Declan Rice, allows him to flourish, and if he can start having performances like he did against Real Madrid, where he was just absolutely unplayable, Declan Rice, with those free kicks were just like, what? There's no point playing against a player that can put the ball in the top bins like that. That was ridiculous performance from Declan Rice, and if he can do that, then Arsenal have got a genuinely threatening midfield that could go on a title run. It's just the mentality of Arsenal. They've lost so many title-winning run-ins in the last 3 seasons. Are they going to be motivated to pick themselves up and go again? They have to go again, and I'm not sure they will, with the likes of City and Liverpool both strengthening. Now into the top 2. I'm going to go Liverpool. Very biased. I've gone with emotion here. I'm obviously a City fan, and people are going to be like, oh, what are you talking about? We'll see. People are sleeping on City, man, but let's talk about Liverpool first of all. We saw Antonio Conte do exactly the same thing as what Arne Slot did. Come into a Premier League side, wipe the floor with everybody, and go, wow, Antonio Conte at Chelsea, what a scintillating manager. Winning the Premier League in your first season, fell off in the second season, wasn't anywhere near as good in the second season. No guarantee that Liverpool will fall off. I don't think they will fall off, not to the extent that Conte did at Chelsea. I still think Liverpool will be very, very close to winning the title. There's question marks about how quickly they will be able to gel. I think that's key for this Liverpool side. I think there's a lot of new transitions happening within the squad, within the starting 11 as well, with 2 new fullbacks. I think Florian Wirtz is probably going to hit the ground running because he's a sensational talent. No two ways about it. How does Frimpong fit into the system? What about the system itself? Because it's going to be a change, because he's very much an opposing type player to Trent Alexander-Arnold. Interesting times. If they sign Isak, they win the league. I think that's where the difference lies right now. I think that's a key component to this transfer window. If they were to sign Alexander Isak, I think that reverses my decision. And I think I put Liverpool ahead of Manchester City, unfortunately. Which, of course, leaves my club, Manchester City, top of the league. Eat shit, supercomputer. Manchester City are back. And I'm hoping we are at least. But, I mean, you just don't write Pep off. You do not write Pep off. Both Peps. The new Pep. Pep Linders, people are sleeping on him as well. Manchester City's new assistant, former assistant to Jurgen Klopp. You're going to see a new Manchester City next season. Mark my words, it's going to be a much more explosive Manchester City season that I don't think people are ready for. I don't think people are quite expecting Manchester City to have the vertical lines going into their formation next season with the likes of Ryan Aït-Nouri and Doku link-up play on one side. I think Mateus Nunes, he's a weak spot defensively, but going forward, the two wide fullbacks we've got in Aït-Nouri and Nunes, both former Wolves players, are going to cause problems. Ryan Cherky, Foden could be back to his best, and if he is, we'll write the season off. Because if Foden hits the 23-24 heights that he hit, player of the season, if he can return to that level, I think the season's over. Because Phil Foden was unplayable in that season. Rodri's back. Don't forget, a Ballon d'Or winner was missing the entire season last season. If he comes back and remains injury-free and doesn't have the hangover of the previous injury carried over to this season and hits the heights he can hit, sensational. I think Tijjani Reinders, AC Milan, Serie A Player of the Year last season. He's now alongside Rodri. Ryan Cherky as well, and obviously the most lethal goal scorer on the planet is leading the line. It's the defence for City. Can they keep the door shut at the back? I think that's the big question marks for Manchester City, but that is my final predictions for the 25-26 season. Let me know yours in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe to Transfer News Live. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.